If someone had told me a year ago that I'd be a millionaire, single, and happier than I'd ever been, I would have laughed in their face. But here I am, and it's all because of one betrayal that set off a chain of events I never saw coming. I guess life has a funny way of surprising you, especially when you least expect it. Let me take you back to where it all started. It was a crisp autumn evening in San Francisco, and I was getting ready for a private equity mixer that I hoped would change everything for my startup, Innovate. We were building AI-driven content tools, something I believed could shake up the tech world. I was 29, co-founder and CTO, and completely obsessed with making it work. My days were a mess of code, coffee, and chaos, but I loved it. That passion drove me, even if it meant my desk looked like a tornado had hit it and my schedule was a puzzle even I couldn't solve. Beside me that night was my wife, Laura. At 30, she was everything I wasn't: sophisticated, polished, always put together. She had this way of gliding through a room that made people notice her, and I was proud to have her with me. We'd been married for 3 years, and she'd been my biggest supporter through the ups and downs of startup life. Or so I thought. That night, she was in a black cocktail dress, her dark hair swept up, looking like she belonged among the elite we were about to mingle with. I adjusted my tie for what felt like the 100th time, feeling out of place but determined. The mixer was in a swanky downtown ballroom, the kind of place where chandeliers sparkled and the marble floors gleamed under your shoes. I took a deep breath as we stepped inside, a hum of conversation and clinking glasses hitting me all at once. This was my shot to pitch Innovate to the right people, investors who could turn our little dream into something massive. "Adrian, you should talk to that group over there," Laura whispered, nodding toward a cluster of guys in sharp suits. "I think one of them is from Talbot Capital." Talbot Capital. Just hearing the name made my pulse kick up a notch. Marcus Talbot ran that firm, a venture capitalist with a reputation for spotting winners and crushing anyone who got in his way. If I could get him on board, it'd be like hitting the jackpot. "Right, thanks," I said, trying to sound calmer than I felt. "Wish me luck." "You don't need luck, babe. You've got this," she replied, giving me a quick kiss on the cheek. Her confidence in me was everything. I headed toward the group, practicing my pitch in my head. As I got closer, I spotted him, Marcus Talbot. He was tall, maybe 38, with salt and pepper hair and this air of control that made you feel small without him even trying. I stuck out my hand. "Mr. Talbot, hi, I'm Adrian Cole, co-founder of Innovate." He shook my hand, his grip firm enough to make me notice. "Ah, yes, the AI content tools. I've heard of you. Interesting concept." "Thanks," I said, jumping on the opening. "We're really excited about where it's going. If you've got a minute, I'd love to tell you more." He glanced past me, and I followed his eyes to where Laura was chatting with someone else. Actually, I was about to grab a drink. "Join me, and we can talk?" "Sure, that'd be great," I said, relieved he didn't shut me down. At the bar, I launched into my spiel, how our AI could streamline content creation, save companies time and money, all that good stuff. Marcus nodded here and there, but his attention kept drifting back to Laura. I figured he was just distracted by the crowd. "Fascinating," he said, though his tone didn't match the word. "And who's that lovely lady you came with?" "Your wife, I assume." "Yeah, that's Laura. She's been amazing through all this startup chaos." "I can see why. She seems engaging." Something about how he said it made me pause, but I shook it off. He was probably just being nice. "Would you like to meet her?" "Absolutely," he said, a smile tugging at his lips. We walked back over, and I made the introduction. "Laura, this is Marcus Talbot from Talbot Capital." "Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Talbot," she said, offering her hand. "Call me Marcus," he replied, taking it and holding on just a beat too long. "The pleasure's mine." They started chatting, and I stood there, feeling a little out of my depth. But my mind was on the business angle. After a bit, Marcus turned to me. "Adrian, send me your pitch deck. I'd like to take a closer look." "Really? That's awesome, thank you," I said, barely keeping my excitement in check. "Of course. Always looking for promising ventures. He glanced at Lara again. Great meeting you, Lara. Maybe we can all do dinner sometime to talk more? That sounds lovely, she said, smiling brightly. As he walked off, I turned to Lara, grinning like an idiot. I think that went well. He wants the pitch deck. That's great, Adrian, she said, but her eyes lingered on where Marcus had gone. After that, I felt like we were on the cusp of something big. I could already picture telling my team we'd hooked a major player. We'd been grinding for months, years, really, and it was finally paying off. I looked at Lara, now talking to someone else, and thought how lucky I was. She was so good at this, working a room, making connections. Sure, I'd been pulling long hours lately, and we'd had our tense moments, but once we got funding, I'd make it up to her. Maybe even start talking about the future, kids, or real life outside the startup grind. Across the room, I caught sight of my buddy Jake. He was mingling too, but he kept glancing at Lara and Marcus, who'd started talking again. When he saw me, he raised an eyebrow. I waved, figuring he was just impressed with how Lara was handling the crowd. Later, as we were heading out, Jake pulled me aside. Hey, good to see you here. How's the funding hunt? Slow, but tonight might have changed that, I said. Yeah, I saw you with Marcus Talbot. Just, be careful with him. He plays hardball. I know, but if he's in, it could be huge. Jake hesitated. Just keep an eye on things, okay? What's that supposed to mean? Nothing specific. This industry's full of opportunists, that's all. I laughed. Don't worry, man. I've got it under control. He clapped my shoulder. Sure you do. Take care. I thought he was just talking business. Looking back, maybe he saw something I didn't. Driving home, I couldn't shut up about the night. Talbot Capital could be it, Lara. If we land them, we're set. She stared out the window, quiet. Yeah, maybe. You okay? You seem off. She sighed. Do you ever think about what we're giving up for this startup? We barely see each other. You're always working late, and even when you're home, you're not really here. I know, I'm sorry. It's just crazy right now. Once we get funding, it'll ease up. I promise. You've been saying that forever, Adrian. I miss us. The way things used to be. I took her hand. I miss it too. Let's plan a weekend away soon, no work, just us. She gave a small smile. That'd be nice. But deep down, I knew it'd be tough to pull off. Innovate was my everything, my dream, and it demanded all I had. I just hoped she could hang on a little longer. That night, I didn't see it, the mixer, Marcus, those little glances. I was too caught up in my own world to notice the cracks forming. But they were there, and soon enough, they'd split wide open, forcing me to face a truth I never imagined. It's late, and I'm alone in my office at Innovate, the faint hum of my laptop filling the quiet. The company is on the verge of a breakthrough. Funding talks with potential investors are gaining momentum, and I've been energized ever since a successful networking event last month. But tonight, something feels off. Lara has been acting distant lately. I've chalked it up to my long hours, convincing myself it's nothing, but the signs are starting to pile up, and I can't ignore them any longer. The first hint comes with a text message. My phone buzzes, and I see Lara's name, out with friends tonight. Don't wait up. I call her, hoping to hear her voice and ease my growing unease, but it goes straight to voicemail. I tell myself she's just busy, maybe enjoying a night out, but this is the third time this week she's been out with friends. A quiet doubt begins to take root. A few days later, I'm sorting through a stack of mail at home when I notice something unusual, a credit card statement with a charge for a hotel downtown. Lara and I haven't stayed there together. My heart beats faster as I carry the statement into the kitchen, where she's chopping vegetables for dinner. Lara, I say, keeping my voice steady, what's this hotel charge about? She glances at the paper briefly before returning to her task. Oh, that? It was a work thing. A last-minute client meeting. The company covered it. Why didn't you tell me about it? I press, watching her closely. It slipped my mind, she replies, offering a small smile. You've been so busy with Innovate, I didn't want to bother you with something minor. Her tone is light, but her smile doesn't reach her eyes. Her explanation sounds reasonable, and I want to believe her. I need to believe her. So, I nod and let it drop, pushing the unease back down. But it lingers, gnawing at me. Then, a conversation with my friend Jake changes everything. We meet for coffee a few days later, and he looks unusually serious. Adrian, he says, hesitating, I need to tell you something. It's about Lara. I force a laugh, trying to keep things light. What, did she forget to RSVP to your barbecue? He doesn't smile back. I've heard rumors. People have seen her with someone. Frequently. My chest tightens, but I shake my head. That's absurd. Who? Marcus Talbot, he says flatly. The name hits me hard. Marcus Talbot is an investor who's been circling Innovate, making offers and probing for weaknesses. No, I say firmly. You're mistaken. I saw them myself, Jake insists. Downtown, at a restaurant. It didn't look like a business meeting. His words cut through my defenses. I want to argue, to dismiss it as nonsense, but memories flood back. Lara's recent questions about Innovate, her sudden interest in our investors and financial plans. I'd thought she was just being supportive. Now, I'm not so sure. That night, I wait until Lara's in the shower and pick up her phone. We've always trusted each other, but I need answers. My hands tremble as I scroll through her messages. Under MT, I find what I dread, miss you already. See you tomorrow, followed by, he's got no idea. We're fine. It's worse than I feared. There's more emails she's forwarded to Marcus, containing Innovate's confidential data, revenue projections, client lists. She's not just having an affair, she's betraying my company too. I quickly screenshot the evidence and send it to myself before placing the phone back, my mind spinning. I can't confront her yet. I'm too angry, too hurt, and I'd risk tipping her off before I can protect Innovate. So, I decide to play it smart. For the next few days, I act normal, smiling, asking about her day, pretending everything's fine. Inside, I'm falling apart, but I keep it together. The next morning, I hire a private investigator. I need hard proof, something beyond screenshots and suspicions. A week later, the photos arrive, Lara and Marcus at a hotel, walking arm in arm, kissing in his car. The evidence confirms it's been going on for months. Worse, the investigator uncovers more. She's been passing Marcus sensitive information that could give him leverage to take over Innovate. This isn't just about our marriage, it's an attack on everything I've built. Late that night, alone in my office, the weight of it all crashes down. The city lights glow outside my window, cold and distant. I call my lawyer to assess the damage. He warns me that Marcus could use this information to force me out if he gains enough influence. Lara's handed him the tools to do it. Grief tears at me, but it's shifting, hardening into anger and determination. They think I'm blind, weak. They're wrong. I built Innovate from nothing, and I won't let them destroy it. I decide then, I'll sell the company, but not to Marcus. I'll find a buyer who can outbid him, someone who'll keep him out of the picture, and I'll do it discreetly, letting him think he's still winning. The next day, I call Sarah, my co-founder and trusted ally. We meet at a quiet coffee shop far from the office. I tell her everything, the affair, the leaked data, the threat to Innovate. Her shock turns to fury. They're finished, she says, her voice steely. What's our next move? We start a bidding war, I explain. We reach out to Marcus's rivals, sell high, and keep it under wraps. He'll never see it coming. She nods, a fierce grin spreading across her face. Let's take them down. And with that, we set the plan in motion. I'm not the naive fool they took me for. The house felt suffocatingly quiet that evening as I waited for Lara to come home. I sat in the living room, the dim glow of a single lamp stretching shadows across the walls. On the coffee table in front of me, I'd spread out the evidence, grainy photographs of her with Marcus, screenshots of their messages, emails that cut deeper than I'd ever admit. My laptop sat open beside it all, displaying the sale contract for Innovate $18 million to Marcus Talbot's fiercest rival. I'd rehearsed my words 100 times in my head, trying to keep the storm inside me from breaking loose too soon. Her footsteps hesitated at the doorway. "Adrian? Why are you sitting in the dark like this?" I didn't look up. My eyes stayed glued to the table, to the proof of her lies. "How was your day?" I asked, my voice calm but sharp around the edges. "Fine," she said, her tone cautious as she set her purse down. "What's going on? You're acting strange." I nodded toward the table. "Take a look." She stepped closer, and I watched her face change. The moment she saw the photos, her laughing with him, his hand on her arm, her breath caught. Then the messages, those private words she'd sent him. Her skin went pale, her hands trembling slightly. What is this?" "You tell me," I said, finally locking eyes with her. "How long, Lara?" She fumbled for words, twisting her fingers together. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't," I snapped, my voice slicing through the air. "Don't lie to me." "Not now." She flinched, her gaze flickering back to the table. "Adrian, please, it's not what you think." I stood, my hands shaking despite my effort to stay steady. "Not what I think? So you're not sleeping with Marcus Talbot? You're not handing him pieces of my company? You're not helping him destroy everything I've poured my life into?" Her facade cracked, and she stepped back, her voice quivering. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this." "Didn't mean for what?" I demanded, the anger surging. "The affair or the betrayal?" "Both," she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You were always gone, Adrian. Always working. I was lonely, and Marcus, he was there. He noticed me." A bitter laugh escaped me, raw and jagged. "So that's your excuse? I worked too hard, so you ran to him?" "It's not an excuse," she cried. "It's what happened. You cared more about Innovate than you ever did about me." Her words stung, but I shoved them aside. "And that makes it okay to betray me? To turn our marriage into a tool for him?" "I didn't want to hurt you," she said, her voice breaking. "Marcus said he could make the company better. I thought I was helping you." "Helping me?" I grabbed the laptop and thrust it toward her, the sale contract blazing on the screen. "Look at this. I sold Innovate today to his biggest rival. $18 million, Lara. More than Marcus could have dreamed of. And he gets nothing." She stared at it, her legs giving out as she collapsed onto the couch. "You sold it? Why?" "To keep it out of his hands," I said, my voice cold and hard. "Because of you. Because you gave him everything he needed to steal it from me." She buried her face in her hands, sobbing. "I didn't know. I thought I was doing the right thing." "You thought you'd win," I told back. "You thought you could have him, the money, everything, and I'd never find out. But you were wrong." Lara looked up, her eyes desperate. "I'm sorry, Adrian. I love you. I never meant to hurt you." I shook my head, the anger draining into something emptier, heavier. "You don't love me. You love what I could give you. But that's done now." "No," she pleaded, reaching for me. I stepped back, out of her grasp. "We can fix this. We can try again." "There's nothing left to fix," I said, my voice low. "You broke us. You broke me." She stood, tears streaming down her face. "So you're just giving up on us?" "You gave up first," I replied. "When you chose him. When you lied to me every day." "I made a mistake," she sobbed. "I don't want to lose you." I turned away, my chest tight with pain and determination. "Pack your things, Lara. Or I'll do it for you." But one of us is leaving tonight. She gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. You're serious? I faced her again, my resolve unshakable. I can't live with you after this. Not anymore. For a moment, she just stared at me, her cries fading into a stunned silence. Then she nodded, grabbing her purse with shaky hands. Fine. I'll go. But this isn't the end, Adrian. I didn't answer. I watched her walk out, the door slamming shut behind her, the sound ringing in my ears. Alone now, I sank back into my chair, my head dropping into my hands. It was over. My marriage, my trust, gone in one hard night. But beneath the ache, something else flickered. A release. The lies were out, and I was free of them. I'd rebuild, start over, and this time, it'd be on my terms. The days after Lara walked out were a storm of emotions, rage, heartbreak, and a steely resolve to not let her destroy what was left of my life. I'd already sold Innovate to Marcus's rival for $18 million, a move that cut her lover out of the picture and secured my future. But that wasn't enough. She'd betrayed me, fed Marcus secrets about my company, and shattered our marriage for her own ambition. I wasn't about to let her walk away with a piece of what I'd built. I called my lawyer, David, the morning after she left. His office was all glass and sharp edges, a symbol of the clarity I needed. I dropped a folder on his desk, photos of Lara with Marcus, text messages, emails where she'd leaked Innovate's plans. Evidence of her double life. David skimmed through it, his face calm but focused. This is good, Adrian, he said, tapping the folder. Infidelity alone doesn't sway asset division, but her passing confidential info to a competitor? That's a different story. We can argue she undermined your business, which strengthens your case to keep the sale proceeds. I clenched my fists, nodding. I want her cut off from the $18 million. She doesn't deserve a dime. He leaned back, steepling his fingers. We'll use this to push a settlement that favors you. Show her what we've got, and she'll likely take a smaller deal to avoid a mess, public or legal. Legal? I asked, tilting my head. If she shared trade secrets without permission, it's a breach of trust, he said. You could sue her for damages. Even the threat of that could make her back down. I didn't want a courtroom circus. I just wanted her out of my life. Let's keep it simple, I said. Offer her a small payout, enough to scrape by, but nothing from Innovate. If she pushes back, we threaten to expose everything. David smirked. Clean and effective. I'll get the papers ready. 2 days later, I set up a meeting with Lara at a quiet cafe downtown. Neutral territory, far from the house that now felt like a hollow shell. I got there early, my nerves buzzing. I still couldn't fully grasp that I was about to face the woman I'd loved like this, treating her like an opponent. But she'd chosen this path, and I had to finish it. She walked in looking worn, pale, eyes sunken. Guilt flickered in me for a moment, but I buried it. She sat down across from me, her voice soft. Adrian, I didn't expect you to call so soon. I wouldn't have, I said flatly, but this needs to end. I slid the divorce papers across the table. She hesitated, then opened them, her hands shaking as she read. What's this? She whispered. Your way out, I said. You get the car, your savings, and $50,000. That's all. No house, no share of Innovate's sale. Her head snapped up, disbelief in her eyes. 50,000? Adrian, we've been married 3 years. I deserve more. I leaned in, my voice low and hard. You deserve what I say you deserve. You cheated on me, Lara. You lied. You tried to help Marcus take my company. You're lucky I'm not leaving you with nothing. Tears brimmed in her eyes as she shook her head. I didn't want it to go this far. I thought I was securing our future. Don't, I cut in, my tone sharp. You were chasing your own dreams, prestige, power, whatever Marcus dangled in front of you. You bet on the wrong man. She frowned, confused. What are you talking about? I pulled out the second folder, the proof, and set it in front of her. She opened it, and her breath caught as she saw the photos, the messages, her own words staring back at her. She turned her head, cheeks flushing with shame. "Here's the deal," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Sign the papers, take the 50,000, and walk away. Fight me, and this goes public, to your friends, your family, your co-workers. I'll drag it through court, and you'll lose everything." She stared at me, panic flashing in her eyes. "You wouldn't." "I would," I said, unyielding. "You tore our life apart. You almost ruined Innovate. I'm done letting you take from me." Silence stretched between us. Her gaze dropped to the table, and after a long moment, she nodded, defeated. "Okay. I'll sign." I handed her a pen, my pulse hammering. I'd braced for a battle, but she just looked, broken. She scratched her name on the papers and slid them back, her voice quivering. "Is that it?" "Almost," I said, standing. I pulled an envelope from my jacket and set it down. "Your copy of Innovate's sale contract. $18 million. More than Marcus ever promised you. And you get none of it." Her face went white as she stared at the envelope. "Why show me this?" "So you know," I said, my voice firm but quiet, "that your betrayal didn't ruin me. It freed me. I sold the company my way, to someone who'll bury Marcus's dreams. I'm moving on, stronger than ever." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Adrian. I didn't mean to hurt you." I shook my head, the heat of my anger cooling into something final. "Too late. You chose this. Now deal with it." I walked out, leaving her there with the papers and her regrets. The sunlight hit my face, and I breathed deep, a weight lifting off my chest. This wasn't about spite, it was about taking back control. She'd tried to strip me bare, but she was the one left empty-handed. And me? I was ready for whatever came next. The weeks after signing the divorce papers dragged on like a haze. My life was consumed with tying up loose ends at Innovate, the company I'd poured everything into. The sale had gone through. $18 million now sat in my account, a surreal figure that should have felt like a triumph. I'd outmaneuvered Marcus, kept Lara from claiming any of it, and yet the house felt emptier than ever. The silence was deafening, broken only by the ghosts of old arguments and better days. At first, I'd been fueled by anger. It had propelled me through the betrayal, her affair with Marcus, her attempt to help him steal my company. But now, that fire was cooling, leaving a dull ache in its place. I missed her. Not the version who'd stabbed me in the back, but the Lara I'd fallen for, the one who'd made me laugh, who'd shared my dreams. It infuriated me that I still felt anything at all. One night, as I sat on the couch staring at the wall, my phone lit up. A text from Lara, "Can we talk? Please. I need to see you." She'd found a way past the block I'd put on her number. I should have deleted it, walked away for good, but something, maybe exhaustion, maybe a need for closure, made me type back, "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., park by the old cafe." The next morning, I got there early. The air was sharp, the park quiet except for a few early risers. I picked a bench, hands in my pockets, trying to steel myself. When Lara arrived, she looked different, thinner, tired, her usual polish worn away. She sat beside me, keeping a careful gap between us. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice small. I nodded, waiting. She took a shaky breath. "I've been thinking about us. About everything." "Us?" I said, my tone rougher than I meant it to be. "That ended when you chose Marcus." "I know," she replied, eyes on her hands. "But I need you to hear why it happened." I tensed. "You slept with him. You tried to ruin me. What's left to explain?" She flinched but kept going. "I felt like I didn't exist to you anymore, Adrian. You were always working, always focused on Innovate. I was lonely. Marcus, he paid attention to me. It started innocently, then it didn't. So, I drove you to it?" I asked, the old bitterness rising. "No," she said firmly. "I messed up. It was my decision, and I hate myself for it. I just want you to know it wasn't about hurting you. Her words stung more than I'd expected. Why say this now? Because I still love you, she said, her voice breaking. I know I don't deserve it, but if there's any chance. There's not, I interrupted. You broke us, Lara. You broke me. Tears slipped down her face. I've changed. Losing you showed me what I threw away. I'd do anything to fix it. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for a second, I pictured us trying again. But the thought dissolved. Trust was gone. It's too late, I said. I can't go back. She reached out, but I pulled my hand away. Please, she whispered. I loved you, I said, my throat tight. But you chose him. I need to let you go. She cried harder, nodding like she'd known this was coming. So, this is goodbye? Yeah, I said, the weight of it settling in. It is. She stood, brushing at her tears. I'll regret this forever, Adrian. I hope you're happy someday. You deserve that. I didn't answer. She walked off, disappearing past the trees, and the park felt colder. But as the sadness pressed down, a small relief broke through. It was done. I'd loved her, lost her, and now I was free of her. I sat there a while, letting it sink in. My phone buzzed. Sarah, my co-founder, coffee soon? Let's talk next steps. A faint smile tugged at me. Innovate was history, but I wasn't. I had the money, the chance to start over. Lara hadn't destroyed me, she'd forced me to rebuild stronger. I texted back, yeah, I'm in. It's been months since I last saw Lara in the park, our final words hanging in the air like a closed chapter. Life has a funny way of pushing you forward, even when you're still piecing yourself back together. I'm a single man now, late 20s, $18 million in the bank, and a future wide open in front of me. It's not where I thought I'd be, but I'm starting to see it's exactly where I need to be. The betrayal hit hard at first. Lara's affair with Marcus, her scheme to help him take Innovate, it stung deep, like a knife twisted in everything I'd worked for. I was furious, wounded, and for a while, I let that anger steer me. But time has a way of softening the edges. As the months rolled by, I realized her actions didn't destroy me, they shattered the bubble I'd been living in. I'd poured everything into the company, leaving my marriage to wither. What she did was wrong, no question, but I wasn't perfect either. Owning that was tough, but it set me free. I've learned something big through all this: success isn't just about the grind or the paycheck. It's about balance, knowing when to push and when to pause, when to put the people in your life first. Selling Innovate? No regrets there. It was a smart move, timed just right. My regret is losing focus on what mattered beyond the boardroom. Now, I'm in a new groove. I've put some cash into a few startups, mentoring founders who've got that same fire I had years ago, eager, a bit wild, bursting with vision. I'm also tinkering with a project of my own, something small and personal. It's early, but it feels right to create again, this time with my eyes open. Lara's out of my orbit now. The bitterness I carried? It's faded into something quieter, almost like a distant memory. Word is she's moved away, chasing a fresh start. I don't wish her ill, if anything, I hope she figures things out. But her story's hers now, not mine. I've dipped my toes back into dating, nothing serious. It's weird after marriage, but it's also kind of fun meeting new faces, figuring out what I want now that I've got some miles on me. I'm in no hurry, I'm just taking it as it comes. This whole mess taught me something I'll never forget: sometimes the worst blows open the door to the best possibilities. Lara's betrayal nudged me to sell the company, to grab the reins of my life in a way I hadn't before. It made me grow up, rethink what counts. I'm not the guy I was a year ago, and I'm thankful for that. So, what's next? I don't have it all mapped out, and that's the thrill of it. I've got the freedom to choose. Maybe I'll travel, hit those corners of the world I've always wanted to see. Maybe I'll jump into another startup, build something fresh from scratch. Or maybe I'll just slow down, savor the little wins, and let life surprise me. Whatever comes, I'm ready. This isn't the end, it's the start.